Hello and welcome to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Ngor. Hello and welcome to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Ngor. This week on Fixing South Sudan, Kapoita in Eastern Equatorial State is Honorable Rizik Zachariah Hassan, Minister of Wildlife Conservation and Tourism, and we are speaking about the plans of his ministry. Recently there was a workshop and he will tell us what the workshop was about, what it is part of. It's our pleasure to welcome him to this show for the first time. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Ustaz Ngor, and I'm really extremely privileged to be hosted today by your humble personality, and I'm quite sure through this program we will try to extend and inform and set the followers of Fixing South Sudan aware about the progress being developed at the ministry level.
Thank you very much, and let's get to the point. It is about promoting tourism, and you have identified some barriers to tourism. Welcome.
Yeah, you see, when matters come to fixing South Sudan in the tourism industry, we have the potentialities. We have the potentials, and it varies because we have the sceneries, we have the land, we have the mountains, we have the parks, and we have the game reserves, we have the Nile, we have the attributes of the Nile. That means we have the factors and we have the resources. What matters now is the utilization of these factors and proper management of these resources. That is what we are now trying to do.
So what did you come up with the workshop? What was the workshop about?
Actually, the workshop it's all about regulating, setting the framework, set the plans for the efficient utilization of the human resource that are available, also to develop the appropriate project proposals, then work plans in order to solicit the appropriate funding, because we cannot rely on the government, but also we have to dig alternatives. This is what we are now trying to do through this workshop.
Our economy is dependent on oil, as is known, and there has time and again been an attempt to diversify the economy. So you have identified, your ministry or the government has identified it as a ministry that can generate a lot of non-oil revenues, and tourism in other countries is a very big and vast industry, brings in a lot of money. What are the issues? What are the key issues? You have identified the issue of human resources, legal framework. What is the situation with the framework that exists?
You see, let me concur with you first about the notion of the role to be played by tourism industry in the economies. Worldwide, globally, most of the developed countries and even the developing countries like our sisterly countries in the region, they are fully relying or partially relying on tourism. And because we are having that resources, they were having that factors which can enable them to manage proper tourism in order to strengthen their economies. And when matters come to South Sudan, I think will fall at the heart of the tourism activities of the region, and let me say of Africa, because all the species present in Africa and all the species, the rare species worldwide, globally, they are found here in South Sudan. We have the diversity of them, we have the varieties. What matters within this industry, and as a result of the lengthy civil conflict, we have lost these resources. We have lost the tourism richness. due to the insecurity, due to the devastation of the national parks, game reserve, due to the rampant poaching and killings of our resources. That's why most of our wildlife had escaped. They have run to the neighboring countries. Now, with this workshop, actually, we have first intended to develop our blueprints, which is the legal framework. And in fact, we have weaknesses along this matter. In fact, the ministry has 3 laws. We have the first law, which is the Wildlife Service Act. That one was being developed before the independence of South Sudan. And when we came to review this act, we have found a lot of defects, a lot of weaknesses. It cannot strengthen and promote the wildlife as a service, and it cannot promote the industry. Then that's why we have reviewed that law, the law of wildlife services, because that law mainly it addresses the wildlife service directorate. The second law is about the protected areas. The law which we have in this field, it was about the national parks for the new Sudan 2003. You see, that law was designated for the national parks, and it was being developed into law in 2003. Then automatically, in 2005, when we signed the CPA, the New Sudan as an entity had dropped out because we came into a new entity. We joined a new entity, which is Sudan government. You see, then that had slipped from our comrades whom were there. We should adopt the laws, the tourism and wildlife laws, which we have been operating, which we are managing Sudan tourism. Anyhow, we should not, this is not the right forum for us to blame ourselves, but now we took it right from there.
And so what are you recommending? That the laws have to be reviewed and changed?
Now we had reviewed that national parks, and now we made it to be South Sudan protected areas to include national parks, game reserves, suits, and any other tourist attraction sites. That the law, the draft bill which we had developed, it's inclusive. It includes all the tourism aspects within the domain of the Republic of South Sudan. The third law, that's about tourism. Mind you, the country we're operating without any tourism law. That is why you can get the defect. The states, they have managed, most of the states here in South Sudan, they have managed to develop their own laws to regulate their tourism. But the national level, we don't have that, you see. That's why now we have tried to make consultation with our sisterly countries, Sudan, East Africa, and now we have developed a draft bill to manage our tourism. Attached to the tourism draft bill which I have developed, there is another aspect, there is another legal framework to regulate the hotels, because the hotels also, it falls within our domain. You see, these are the 3 legal frameworks which we had developed, plus the attachment, which is the hotels aspect. The other aspect, it's about the structures, because you cannot manage a ministry just like a flow of water. That cannot happen. Now, for instance, at the headquarters, we have a parade of 5,400. That is the force, wildlife force parade. And in real fact, we are not in need for these huge forces at the national level, because in Juba, we don't need these forces. The actual place for these forces to be assigned at are the national parks, the game reserve, the heritages, the historical areas. These are where they should be assigned. And that's why now we came up with the structure. We had come up with clearly defined structures, defining the deployment at the national level, at the state level, at the parks and the game reserve. And the focus now will be tendered towards the game reserves and the national parks, because that is where the tourist attraction site should be. You see, this is
It seems like you're putting your faith, a lot of your faith, in just having the legal framework. Often you find that it is not enough if it is not implemented. And to implement it, do you agree, needs some kind of awareness?
You see, what matters now in this juncture, it's the optimism. We are optimistic. And as long as we are optimistic, we should start with the right footing. The right footing, we have to develop the blueprints, the legal framework. After the legal framework, now immediately we are going to deploy these forces. And I'm quite sure also we'll be pursuing the laws through the legal desks, through the Minister of Judicial Affairs, through the Cabinet, then to the assembly, even though it may take time, but also already we had triggered the process, you see. Then also along the same task, there is a room for us to mobilize the other aspects about the infrastructure and about the other issues, you see. Now we are trying to pursue our things in a very scientific way and in sequence.
And where does the optimism come from? Does it come from you as the new Minister of Wildlife, Conservation and Tourism, or is it coming from the peace agreement?
The optimism comes from peace agreement first, because through peace had offered us security. It had set calm all the gunfire. Automatically, once we silence guns, automatically South Sudan will be attractive to invite back our wild animals which have abandoned South Sudan because of that elements. And luckily enough now, our leadership had instructed the forces to do disarmament on the other side of the country. Also, that is one of the lights, I think. Then, plus my coming to the ministry, I had viewed and visioned that this ministry should look like lights through this process, these steps and this process. This is what we are now doing, and luckily enough, I have obtained good cooperation.
How long will it take before you can say South Sudan is ready for tourism?
There are some determinant factors. When matters related to legal framework, it depends on the assembly. When matters related to the installation and the facilities in the parks, game reserve, tourist attraction site, it depends on the funding. But now we are already pursuing this success. As long as, because potentially we'll be deploying, we'll be assigning the wildlife forces, then the tourism, the tourist staff to the attraction site within the shortest time possible. Because now we have the blueprint, we'll go for that. That means once we deploy them, that means we are ready.
In this program, we speak of fixing South Sudan, and in this case, fixing the tourism industry. Will you do it?
Yes, I'm there. I'm being assigned for that purpose. I have to do my part, even though there would be some challenges. But I should not bog myself down with challenges, because the main challenge, which I know, it's about funding. And within the last 2 weeks, we have tabled our 6 months budget before the cluster, and it was being adopted, and it was being discussed, taken to the presidency. That is one aspect. That is one light of funding our projects. The other light, we have partners. The partners, within their MOUs, there are some articles, identified areas of cooperation. Also, we have some friendly countries who are looking towards investment in tourism of South Sudan. Also, we will be utilizing that, because we see what matters now, it's about the programs, the plans, and the strategies. Because you cannot attract funding without having things without having proper justification.
And what is indication, what signal are you getting from your own government? Is the government committed to building up this sector?
Yes. We have actually received bold commitment from the leadership. Even the success of the workshop, it came through the leadership. It was being blessed by the president. It was being catered for by the vice president, who is in charge of the economic cluster. Also, we have obtained blessings from the other comrades within the leadership ladder.
Let's emphasize the issue of the workshop. It wasn't just an ordinary workshop. It was expansive. And give me the full dimensions of the workshop that you held and who was there.
Yeah, you see, I agree with you totally that the workshop is not an ordinary workshop. It's of great importance, because we have developed the concept of developing the legal framework. Also, this time we have tried to involve the leadership, because even sometimes back, our ministries, they used to discuss 100 documents without making consultations. Now we have involved the leadership of the ministry, all the officers, senior officers of wildlife. We had brought them from the various aspects of life within the Republic of South Sudan, and they have participated in adopting these documents. That means everybody have owned that documents. Also, the resolutions of that workshop, the resolutions, it paved the way, it shows the way, and it gives us the directions towards how should we approach and what will be considered as the priority.
And what would you say is your personal end goal? Because you're one of the most experienced civil servants as governor for a decade and now making a transition. And you speak of that optimism. What gives you the optimism that you are going to contribute towards fixing this sector and the country in the process?
Yeah, I think we have the relations with my line ministries. We have the contact with the 10 states. Then we managed to obtain the blessings from the leadership. All these factors, bringing them together into one podium, that will register the success of this field. As I told you before, that our central challenge and central focus will be about funding, and now we are trying to diversify the approaches in terms of obtaining funding. Now, the other aspects of involving the other parties, like the states and the other line ministries, plus the public, because the wildlife in itself is a challenge, because there is human conflict, human wildlife conflicts, there is human inefficient utilization of the wildlife, like poaching and other aspects. Then also we have to capture that one properly in order to develop awareness, to show the public the importance of wildlife in promoting tourism industry. You see, all these factors coming together will boost.
One of the constraints that you mentioned earlier on was the issue of human resource. What are you going to do to streamline the human resource so that it works efficiently?
The available one at our stake will be utilizing them according to the structures, according to the developed and adapted structures. We'll be assigning them. For instance, all the parks, we have designed park management. In all the parks, the 6 parks, 7 parks including Rodom or Kafia Ganje. Then the 12 game reserves, we have designated their administration. Also, we have designated outposts as an access for protection. Then we have developed anti-poaching units. This is the first time to introduce anti-poaching units. Anti-poaching units, we have that anti-poaching, it was being stimulated based on the necessities of that parks or game reserves. In the parks, we made it different. It differs from the Southern National Park, which is the largest. In that one, we have projected the need of 375 strong personnel to be deployed there for the protection. That is only for the anti-poaching. In Numuli, we had projected 144, which is 4 platoons to protect and manage Numuli. That goes for the rest. You see, through this way, we will secure the efficient utilization of the workforce available, of the forces available in terms of this structure.
And the workshop, the workforce available often doesn't do to the satisfaction of the authorities, because there is corruption involved. Sometimes they collude with the poachers themselves. Is it something you have identified?
Yes, you see, there are some sensitive issues. For us, as the administration of the ministry, we have to handle them with much care, because these are the available forces that we have. And we cannot blame them, because we didn't utilize them. Now we are intending to utilize them, to deploy them, to give them assignments. Then we will be accounting them based on their fulfillment of that task. If they fail in their different assignments, if they fail to fulfill or accomplish the task and the programs that we lay for them, or for sure, that's where they will be held accountable. There will be oversight.
You are bringing strong oversight, which was missing. The other aspect is infrastructure. When we talk about national parks, they are national parks by names. Yeah. And all the things that are needed, the facilities are not there. That is it. This is also something you want to improve.
That is it. Because you cannot talk about the national parks, you don't have the management of these parks. You don't have the management plans for this task. You don't have the protection for both the wildlife aspects and the human life for the tourists who are coming also, their life need to be secured. You see, then also we have to obtain a deterrent force, deterrent power to overcome or press the poaching out. You see, these are some of the essentials. Then also in all of these parks and game reserves, we have to develop facilities. We are expecting tourists to rush into these parks. How should we accommodate them? How should we, what utilities should we provide them with? Because they need utilities.
All the beautiful plants are there, but on paper, and if there's no money, you will not succeed.
You see, sometimes that would be one of our, sometimes it would be some of our challenges, our problems. Because if you got the money and you don't have the plans, you'll be in trouble. Better for you to have the plans, then you will solicit the fund based on that plans. And this is what we are now doing.
So it is the plans that you are banking on?
Yes, we have the plans and we are optimistic because already there are lights, but we will not expose these lights now.
Would you say in the end the failure will be determined by not having resources?
No, let me assure you, I'm quite optimistic. If there is any defects, it will not be more than 15 or 20%, but 80% would be the success.
And what would, I ask you a question you did not answer, what would you like to see at the end of your tenure? What is your end goal?
I would like to see South Sudan tourism would pick the lead and should formulate the backbone for South Sudan's economy. Even though now we are relying fully on oil, but if you can compare the contribution of tourism to the GDP in the other countries, for sure, you will realize that tourism plays major roles. What matters now, what is missing in us is the efficient utilization of this sector.
In your states, the various states in which you have been governor, would you say you left some achievements there, or this is the only place where you are going to plan a legacy for?
You see, during the 10 states, we had a very healthy experience, and I wish the national government should revive it in managing the states. Yeah, the governance forum. In governance forum, there is that forum. It assesses the states' capacities, capabilities, and developments on annual basis. And mine, you can review the outcome of this governance.
Are you carrying any success forward?
Yes, for sure. During the governance forums, we have a lot of progress, and even Western Barghazal, we are being registered among the best states, by the way, in South Sudan.
What are the key indicators for success?
Structures. We have developed structures. All the 16 PM headquarters in the state, we developed them. All the county headquarters, we have developed them. We have initiated the legislative assembly and the municipality. They are there. There are a lot of developmental projects, by the way. We have developed courts, 2 courts. We have developed bridges, infrastructures, whatsoever. Then comes the human developments. Also, we have developed, we have incorporated a lot of trainings. We have developed partnership, we signed MOUs with Egypt, with some provinces in Egypt, and also there are a lot of
your
developments.
critics don't see that. They think all you brought to the table was oppression for you.
I agree with you. You see, we are human beings and we are managing a third world country. Don't expect whatever you are doing, it will be blessed and accepted by everyone. But you have to believe on yourselves, believe on the system that you are part of, believe on the party policies and objectives, then work accordingly. What matters now? Security. During my period in Western Barghazal, how does it look like? Security.
You brought security?
It was amongst the best. You see, that is the top priority.
And then the war happened, and thousands ended up at the UNMISS camps.
That is when I departed, after the broke away of the 10 states. Because during my period, the only people who were in the POCs were some of the forces who were trying to defect from Mapel and Wow. And I remember their number was 278. That were the forces. Actually, we have regulated them to be in the POCs, but they were not civilians. The civilians entered WOW in 2016, where I myself, I was in lawless state.
Can you face the people of South Sudan and say you tried your best to fix South Sudan?
Yeah, you see, We are party, caddies, we
You
are party
made
comrades,
decisions in the interest of
we are
your
party, caddies, party comrades. We are coding, we are working and executing, enforcing the party policies and objectives. Whatsoever that I'm doing, it would be counted as party direction and trend. Even though within our party we have some challenges, but yet what we have done is part of that policy. Wherever there is blames, even though it will be personal, but yet I'm quite convinced I have managed to meet some of the requirements.
But you are not entirely blameless.
The blame would be there. The blame would be
is
there. The blame would be there because we are human beings and we cannot assume ourselves to be perfect.
What will it take to fix South Sudan? Not just in your field, but in general.
Yeah, I think now we are in a different era, different stage. And now we are coming up with the revitalized transitional government of the national unity. This notion gives the task to everybody. The first and the foremost task for us is peace. Provision of security, peace, reconciliation. Then also, every and each amongst us is entitled to fulfill his duties according to his whereabout. If you are a farmer, you have to fulfill that task, meet your duties, meet your obligations. If you are a teacher, go do your task. South Sudan could be built by joint efforts. It should not be a matter of blaming, and not everybody should remain aloof, then blaming the government. The government didn't did this, and the government didn't do that. The role of the government is to provide the basic and the essential services.
Is there one thing that can fix South Sudan?
Accepting each other.
Thank you very much for coming to the show.